What if I told you millions of working people in Britain woke up one day and realized the government they trusted wasn't really working for them at all? Not the rich, not the corporations, not the politicians. I'm talking about the nurses, the drivers, the builders, the cleaners, the small shop owners, the delivery workers, the real backbone of the UK economy. And today, a shocking political move is making them feel abandoned, betrayed, and silent no longer. But what really happened behind the doors of UK Parliament? Why do people say Day One rights has turned into a Day One disaster? And more importantly, is this the moment the British public finally turns its back on the system? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will shock you. Before every election, there is a promise of fairness, a promise of respect, a promise of rights, a promise that working people will finally be protected. And when the word spread that new Day One rights for workers were coming, people felt hope. They believed no more unfair firings, no more zero-hour exploitation, no more silent suffering, no more being treated like disposable machines. For the first time in a long time, people said, maybe this government will finally stand with us. But be honest with me, when has politics ever given without taking something back? Because behind the smiling speeches, behind the big headlines, behind the TV cameras, something completely different was happening. Something that most people didn't notice. But now they can't ignore. Within days, social media started filling up with stories. A delivery driver saying, "They said my job was protected, but suddenly my contract changed." A nurse saying, "Our shifts were cut instead of being secured." A retail worker saying, "They raised rules for small businesses, but big corporations were untouched." People began to realize something terrifying. These rights were starting to feel like restrictions. Instead of protection, it felt like more control. Instead of fairness, it felt like pressure. Instead of support, it felt like punishment. And that's when the word started to spread quietly at first, then louder, then everywhere. The working class has been betrayed. Inside the House of Commons, members were arguing, whispers in hallways, private meetings, closed-door discussions. Opposition MPs started calling the changes rushed, unclear, dangerous for small workers. Some even said, this will hurt the exact people it was supposed to protect. But out on TV, the government smiled. They said, this is a historic moment. This is progress. This is a new era. Two very different realities, one inside Parliament and another in the lives of everyday people. And when a government's story doesn't match the people's reality, trust begins to die. And when trust dies, anger is born. Bus stops, tea shops, job sites, schools, hospitals, warehouses. People started having the same conversation. Have you felt a difference? Did your hours change? Is your job safe? Do you feel protected? And the scariest part? Most people answered, no, I feel more afraid than before. When workers are afraid, a country becomes unstable, and the government knows this. But instead of fixing the problem, they doubled down. They pushed forward, and that made people even more furious. Which leads to the question no one in power wants to answer. If the government won't protect the working class, then who will? This is bigger than one policy, bigger than one speech, bigger than one minister. This is a moment where the public starts asking, do they really represent us? Or are we just a number on a paper? Are votes just tools? Does Parliament actually listen? History shows us something very clear. When the working class feels betrayed, politics breaks. New movements rise. New parties grow. Old loyalty dies, and power shifts. Slowly at first, then suddenly. Let me ask you something. If a government promises you protection, but you end up feeling more insecure, is that leadership or betrayal? Comment below and tell me what you think. Protected or betrayed? Because your answers might say more than the news ever will. In Part 02, I'm going to reveal what changed in the actual worker rules, why unions are getting louder, why small businesses are panicking, and the one decision in Parliament that set everything on fire. But the biggest shock? There is something else hidden in this plan. And when you hear it, you'll understand why people are saying, this wasn't a mistake. It was planned. Make sure you don't miss Part 02, because that's when the real truth begins to surface. Just a few months ago, workers in the UK were celebrating what they thought would be a new era of protection. The government promised stronger rights, more job security, and fair treatment for everyone. But now, a strange pattern is emerging. Instead of feeling safer, many workers feel targeted. Instead of feeling valued, many feel controlled. And instead of feeling supported, thousands now feel closer to unemployment than ever before. So what really changed? On paper, the idea was simple. Workers would receive full employment rights from their very first day. No waiting period, no trial phase, no uncertainty. Sounds perfect, right? But the problem was never the idea. The problem was how businesses would react to it. Many employers, especially small and mid-sized businesses, started seeing this as a risk they could not afford. If hiring someone means immediate legal obligations, lengthy procedures to let them go, and increased costs, then the natural response is simple. Hire less, work current staff harder, automate where possible. Instead of opening more jobs, companies started freezing positions. Instead of expanding, they started protecting themselves. This caused a quiet but very real ripple effect in the job market. Vacancies started disappearing. Temporary roles stopped being offered, and interview processes became harder than ever. New workers weren't gaining power. They were losing opportunities. On forums and comment sections, on radio shows and independent podcasts, people began sharing similar stories. A man in Birmingham said his full-time hours were suddenly reduced. A young woman in Manchester said her job offer was delayed indefinitely. A delivery driver in Leeds said his company had stopped taking on new workers completely. Different jobs, different cities, same pattern. And the scariest part? These weren't big corporate decisions making headlines. These were silent changes happening to everyday people. The type of changes that don't trend on TV, but destroy lives quietly. While large companies have legal teams and massive budgets, small businesses do not. Many owners began speaking openly about their fear. If I make one wrong decision, I could lose everything. For family-owned shops, cafes, cleaning services, construction companies and delivery businesses, these new rules felt like a ticking clock. Instead of hiring young workers or giving someone a chance, they chose the safer route: do nothing. And when businesses stop moving, the entire economy slows down with them. That's exactly what workers across the country are now starting to feel. Here is where things get even more dramatic. While workers and business owners were panicking, Parliament was holding debates full of confident speeches, proud announcements, and claims of historic change. Some MPs praised the move as a victory. Others warned it could backfire horribly. A few tried to raise concerns but were quickly dismissed. The divide wasn't just political. It was becoming societal. Those in power were speaking in statistics. Those outside were speaking in survival. And when the gap between government and the working class grows too wide, something always breaks. This is the part many leaders fear most. Disappointed people don't stay silent forever. They start looking for alternatives. New voices, new leaders, new parties, new movements. That's why political analysts are now warning of a brewing storm. Growing support for opposition parties. Rise in independent candidates. Frustration leading to protest votes. A possible collapse in traditional party loyalty. History shows that this is how political earthquakes begin. Quietly, then all at once. Because now it is no longer just about worker rights. It is about trust in leadership, confidence in the system, identity of the working class, and the future of the UK's political direction. If the government does not change course, admit mistakes, or clearly explain the real plan, this day one rights concept could become the very reason they lose power. And the worst part, many believe this was preventable. In the next part, I am going to reveal why Reform UK is surging, why Labour is losing ground in key areas, and how this very policy could reshape the next election in ways no one expected. This is no longer just news. This is a turning point in British history unfolding in real time. For years, British politics felt predictable. Same parties, same promises, same cycle. But now, something very unusual is happening. People who have voted the same way for decades are suddenly changing their minds. Longtime supporters of traditional parties are walking away, and a name that was once on the political sidelines is now appearing in headlines, search trends, and conversations across the country. Reform UK is rising, and Labour is starting to feel the pressure. But why now? And why so fast? Let's break it down. For working-class communities, loyalty to Labour was once almost unbreakable. It was passed down from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren. But lately, many voters feel something has changed. Not just in policy, but in attitude. People say Labour no longer speaks their language. It no longer reflects their struggles. It no longer feels like a party of the people. Instead, many describe it as distant, polished, and disconnected from real everyday life. And that feeling of abandonment is powerful. When people lose trust in their party, They go looking for another voice. That is where Reform UK entered the picture. Reform UK is not winning people over with perfect solutions. They're winning with something much more powerful: simplicity and emotion. Their message is clear and direct. The system is broken. The people are ignored. The government is not listening. We will challenge the establishment. Even if people don't fully agree with every policy, they agree with the feeling behind the message. And in politics, emotion beats detail, every time. This is why support is rising, especially in areas where people feel forgotten. Struggling towns, former industrial cities, working-class communities, small business regions, border and migration-impacted areas. These voters don't want fancy speeches. They want honesty. They want control. And above all, they want to be heard. While Reform UK is growing louder, Labour's voice is starting to feel quieter, not because they aren't speaking, but because fewer people are listening. Their policies may look strong on paper. Their speeches may sound impressive in Parliament. But on the street level, many feel those words never turn into real-life improvement. And Day One Rights, which was meant to empower workers, is now being seen as just another top-down decision, made without truly understanding the consequences. Instead of creating hope, it created fear. Instead of creating jobs, it created hesitation. Instead of creating progress, it created division. That single idea became a powerful symbol of a wider problem: the disconnect between government and people. And Labour is now being associated with that disconnect. Social media is playing a huge role in this. On TikTok, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, political content is spreading faster than ever. Short videos showing angry interviews, emotional speeches, unpaid workers, struggling families, all of it goes viral. And interestingly, reform-leaning content is currently getting more engagement than traditional party messaging. Why? Because it feels raw. Because it feels unscripted. Because it feels real. Algorithms don't care about political history. They care about attention. And right now, attention is leaving Labour. Another surprise is happening. Younger voters, who were once expected to strongly support Labour, are becoming frustrated too. They were promised affordable housing, secure jobs, strong wages, stable future, but they are seeing rent prices exploding, fewer opportunities, high competition, uncertain future. So instead of choosing traditional parties, many are now choosing anti-establishment energy. They want disruption, change, a shock to the system, even if that change is risky. And that type of mindset can transform an entire election. Behind closed doors, even some political experts are now admitting something important. If current trends continue, this might not just be a normal shift. This might be a political realignment, a moment in history where old alliances collapse, new movements rise, power changes direction. The future is rewritten, and it all connects back to one thing: the working class feeling betrayed. This is bigger than parties and leaders. This is about identity, hope, struggle, respect, survival. People aren't thinking like voters anymore. They're thinking like fighters. And when society reaches that stage, the outcome is never gentle. In Part 4, I'm going to take you inside the growing tensions in Parliament itself, the arguments, the hidden conflicts, the silent rivalries, and the power games happening behind closed doors. Because what you're seeing on TV is only a small part of the full story. A storm is building inside Westminster, and someone is going to lose control. What happens when a government loses the people and still refuses to change? What happens when workers, nurses, teachers, drivers, shop owners, and even retired families feel completely betrayed? But Parliament keeps passing laws that benefit only the elite. Today, the UK may be reaching the most dangerous political moment in decades. Not because of a war, not because of a pandemic, but because of a silent anger that is building in the hearts of ordinary British people. And that anger might change everything across London, Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, and dozens of smaller towns. One thing is becoming clear. People are tired, not tired of work, but tired of lies. Rent is rising. Fuel is still expensive. Food prices are high. Wages feel frozen. Taxes feel unfair. And benefits are being cut. And when workers asked for support through strong Day One rights, they were promised protection. But what did they really get? Delays, weak policies, excuses. In working-class neighborhoods, families are now asking, if this is what Labour does, then who do we trust? This is where the anger is now rising. Not on social media, not in parliament, but in real homes, real kitchens, real streets. And this anger is more dangerous than any opposition party. For generations, Labor was known as the voice of the workers, but something has changed. Now, working-class voters feel used instead of protected. They hear speeches in parliament, but feel nothing in their paychecks. They see politicians arguing on TV, but see food getting removed from their own tables. This is what people are saying. They only remember us during elections. They promise change. Where is it? They sit in parliament. We suffer outside. Even Labor's own supporters are now divided. Some still defend the party. Others say it has sold its soul. And when a political party loses its own base, that is when history begins to bend. Here's the most important part. This is no longer just about Labor versus conservatives. Something bigger is happening. A new type of voter is emerging. Not left. Not right. But angry. They don't care for traditional parties. They want a disruption. They want someone who speaks directly, has no political filter, is willing to burn the old system. This is why smaller and more aggressive parties are suddenly gaining support. This is why independent candidates are getting attention. And this is why future elections may shock everyone. The next vote may not be a normal election. It might be a punishment vote. A message to the entire political system. You failed us. History shows us one clear truth. When governments ignore the people long enough, people find another way to be heard. It can bring massive protests, economic boycotts, political chaos, leadership collapse, and sometimes the total destruction of a party that once seemed untouchable. This is the danger facing UK leadership right now. They are trying to quiet the storm instead of fixing the damage. But storms don't disappear. They grow, and they destroy what stands above them. Here's the final message of this series. The working class is not asking for luxury. They are asking for dignity. They are not demanding power. They want respect. They are not shouting for war. They want fairness. And if they do not receive it, then the next election will not be about politics. It will be about revenge at the ballot box, a silent revolution, led by ordinary people, against a broken system. And when the people finally speak together, even the strongest government falls. Please subscribe EchoStorm for further videos. The truth is only beginning to come out. Politics is a dangerous game of timing. You don't always lose power because of a single decision. You lose it because of what happens next. Right now, the UK is standing at one of those critical crossroads. One wrong move, one ignored warning, one poor decision, and the entire political landscape could shift for years. The real question isn't what already happened. The real question is, what happens next? And the answer has more than one path. In the first possible outcome, the government recognizes the problem early enough. They adjust their language, review controversial policies, and begin to openly communicate with the public. This would mean softening certain parts of the Day One rights system, offering support to struggling small businesses, creating stronger connections with working communities, showing real accountability. If this happens fast enough, trust could begin to return slowly, not immediately, not easily, but enough to stop the bleeding. However, history shows that governments rarely admit mistakes early. Pride, politics, and image often stand in the way of common sense. So while this path is possible, it is not the most likely. This second outcome is already beginning to form. Instead of changing direction, the government simply becomes more defensive. They push forward. They double down. They blame misinformation, the media, the opposition, or even the people themselves. This strategy is risky. Why? Because when the public feels ignored, they don't argue anymore. They disengage. With lower trust comes lower approval, lower voter loyalty, higher support for alternatives, growing emotional distance. And once emotional distance forms, it is very hard to repair. This is the path that has destroyed many past governments around the world. Not because they lacked power, but because they lost connection. History has shown us something interesting. When traditional leaders fail, new ones appear. These new forces don't follow old rules. They don't use polished language. They don't respect tradition. And that's exactly why people follow them. If Labour continues to weaken and public trust keeps collapsing, space is created, and that space will be filled. Possibilities include a stronger Reform UK, rising independent movements, unexpected coalitions, a completely new political voice. In times of instability, people follow whoever feels strongest, boldest, and most confident, not necessarily the most experienced. That is what makes this moment so dangerous. and so fascinating. Politicians often think voters are divided by party. In reality, they are divided by hope versus hopelessness. When people feel hopeful, they defend the system. When people feel hopeless, they tear it down. Right now, the working class is standing on an emotional edge. Many feel overworked, underpaid, overlooked, disrespected. And when a population feels disrespected for too long, voting turns into a protest, not a choice. A protest. That single emotional shift is powerful enough to flip governments. There are two types of dangerous voters. The angry voter, the silent non-voter. One votes against you, the other abandons you completely. And right now, the government might be facing both at the same time. Low turnout from disappointed supporters, high turnout from frustrated opposition. That combination is lethal. It doesn't just change leadership, it rewrites political history. Why this moment feels different from the past. Many governments have faced criticism before. So why does this feel so different? Because the world has changed. Social media spreads anger in seconds. Videos go viral worldwide instantly. People compare leaders globally. Information moves faster than control. No government today can hide behind silence. Every action is recorded. Every word is analyzed. Every contradiction is remembered. That level of opposure is causing panic in old systems that were built for a slower, quieter world. And the public is no longer patient. Political experts agree on one thing. The coming weeks will be critical. Whatever happens in this short time window will likely decide the future of labor leadership, the strength of new movements, the tone of the next election, the direction of the country. This is the moment where strategy must meet reality. But so far, reality seems stronger. In Part 06, the final part of this series, I'm going to bring everything together. The real consequences for everyday people, the long-term impact on the UK, the final warning signs, and what history tells us about moments like this. Because this isn't just another political story, it's a national turning point. And once the line is crossed, there is no going back. Politics is a dangerous game of timing. You don't always lose power because of a single decision. You lose it because of what happens next. Right now, the UK is standing at one of those critical crossroads. One wrong move, one ignored warning, one poor decision, and the entire political landscape could shift for years. The real question isn't what already happened. The real question is, what happens next? And the answer has more than one path. In the first possible outcome, the government recognizes the problem early enough. They adjust their language, review controversial policies, and begin to openly communicate with the public. This would mean softening certain parts of the Day One rights system, offering support to struggling small businesses, creating stronger connections with working communities, showing real accountability. If this happens fast enough, trust could begin to return slowly, not immediately, not easily, but enough to stop the bleeding. However, history shows that governments rarely admit mistakes early. Pride, politics, and image often stand in the way of common sense. So while this path is possible, it is not the most likely. This second outcome is already beginning to form. Instead of changing direction, the government simply becomes more defensive. They push forward. They double down. They blame misinformation, the media, the opposition, or even the people themselves. This strategy is risky. Why? Because when the public feels ignored, they don't argue anymore. They disengage. With lower trust comes lower approval, lower voter loyalty, higher support for alternatives, growing emotional distance. And once emotional distance forms, it is very hard to repair. This is the path that has destroyed many past governments around the world, not because they lacked power, but because they lost connection. History has shown us something interesting. When traditional leaders fail, new ones appear. These new forces don't follow old rules. They don't use polished language. They don't respect tradition. And that's exactly why people follow them. If labor continues to weaken and public trust keeps collapsing, space is created, and that space will be filled. Possibilities include a stronger Reform UK, rising independent movements, unexpected coalitions, a completely new political voice. In times of instability, people follow whoever feels strongest, boldest, and most confident, not necessarily the most experienced. That is what makes this moment so dangerous and so fascinating. Politicians often think voters are divided by party. In reality, they are divided by hope versus hopelessness. When people feel hopeful, they defend the system. When people feel hopeless, they tear it down. Right now, The working class is standing on an emotional edge. Many feel overworked, underpaid, overlooked, disrespected. And when a population feels disrespected for too long, voting turns into a protest, not a choice. A protest. That single emotional shift is powerful enough to flip governments. There are two types of dangerous voters. The angry voter, the silent non-voter. One votes against you, the other abandons you completely. And right now, the government might be facing both at the same time. Low turnout from disappointed supporters, high turnout from frustrated opposition. That combination is lethal. It doesn't just change leadership, it rewrites political history. Why this moment feels different from the past. Many governments have faced criticism before. So why does this feel so different? Because the world has changed. Social media spreads anger in seconds. Videos go viral worldwide instantly. People compare leaders globally. Information moves faster than control. No government today can hide behind silence. Every action is recorded. Every word is analyzed. Every contradiction is remembered. That level of opposure is causing panic in old systems that were built for a slower, quieter world. And the public is no longer patient. Political experts agree on one thing. The coming weeks will be critical. Whatever happens in this short time window will likely decide the future of labor leadership, the strength of new movements, the tone of the next election, the direction of the country. This is the moment where strategy must meet reality. But so far, reality seems stronger. In Part 06, the final part of this series, I'm going to bring everything together. The real consequences for everyday people, the long-term impact on the UK, the final warning signs, and what history tells us about moments like this. Because this isn't just another political story, it's a national turning point. And once the line is crossed, there is no going back. When people think of Parliament, they imagine order, tradition, and control. Laws being passed, leaders debating, and the country being guided with calm authority. But behind those polished speeches and formal handshakes, the reality right now is very different. Inside Westminster, tension is rising. Conversations are becoming sharper. Meetings are growing more secretive, and alliances that once looked unbreakable are beginning to crack. What the public sees is one version. What's happening behind closed doors is a completely different story, and it's getting harder to hide. On one side, you have leaders determined to defend their policies, protect their image, and maintain control. On the other, you have MPs quietly panicking as they see public support slipping away. Some still believe the situation can be fixed through strategy and communication. Others believe the damage is already done. Whispers inside Parliament suggest that private conversations have become tense, even hostile. Members of the same party are no longer fully aligned. There is mistrust. There is blame. There is fear. Fear of losing seats. Fear of losing power. Fear of becoming irrelevant. And in politics, fear changes everything. This isn't only about labor versus opposition. A much bigger issue is happening inside labor. There are two growing camps. Those who want to stay firm and continue the current path. Those who believe the strategy is failing and change is required. Some believe that admitting mistakes will make them look weak. Others believe that refusing to change will destroy them entirely. So instead of unity, what we are seeing is quiet tension, passive resistance, and subtle disagreement. When a party loses unity, it loses strength. When it loses strength, others move in to fill the gap. And that is exactly what is happening now. Even when Reform UK is not physically in the room, their presence is felt. Every debate, every speech, every discussion is now influenced by the growing reality that another force is gaining attention outside these walls. Some MPs are beginning to adjust their language. Some are becoming more defensive. Some are attacking louder than before. Not because they feel confident, but because they feel threatened. And when politicians feel threatened, their decisions are driven by survival, not logic. The public might not know every detail of parliamentary strategy, but one thing they are extremely good at noticing. People watching live sessions are noticing more sarcasm, more aggression, more emotional speeches. The calm professionalism is being replaced by something else, desperation. And the more desperate it looks inside Parliament, the less confident people feel about the leadership outside of it. This creates a dangerous cycle. Public loses trust. Politicians panic. Panic creates bad decisions. Bad decisions create more public anger. And so the spiral continues. For years, the government relied on major media to control the narrative. But that era is ending. Independent journalists, YouTubers, live streamers, TikTok creators, they are now breaking down every moment. Every movement, every facial expression of MPs. Nothing is hidden anymore. A strange school of thought is emerging. If leaders don't look confident, they aren't fit to lead. This psychological effect is hurting the government more than any official report ever could, because people don't vote with spreadsheets. They vote with emotion, and the emotion right now is turning dark. Quietly, in private meetings, political strategists are now urgently discussing the possibility of leadership changes, early elections, and internal restructuring. Even if nothing happens immediately, the fact that these conversations exist tells us something important. The system feels unstable. And once a system starts feeling unstable, it becomes unstable. This is the point history books talk about, not as one big dramatic moment, but as many small cracks forming over time. And right now, the walls of British politics are starting to crack. In Part 05, I will focus on one important question. What happens next? Will the government recover and regain control? Or are we heading toward one of the biggest political shakeups in modern UK history? Because according to experts, the next few moves will decide everything. And make no mistake, the British people are watching.